Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be fucked up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Hostel, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis. Hello, this is part 2 of a 2-part episode. In part 1, we led up to the events that led to Elisa Lam being discovered in a water tank on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. If you want to learn a bit more about Elisa here, and you want to learn the backstory to this story, please listen to part 1. Without further ado, here's part 2, our conclusion on the Elisa Lam mystery.
I did not see, personally, Ms. Lam's body in there. I know she was photographed, obviously, and that will obviously not be released. Out of respect to the family, we don't get into too much of discussions about what the conditions of the body were, but suffice to say it had been in the water tank for a period of time. So I don't know exactly the condition of the body, but certainly the coroner will be able to tell us more about that when they finish their exam. We don't believe her body was hidden someplace. We believe that her body was pretty much the whole time in that storage tank. Even the storage tank has a small lid that allows for looking inside of it, a hinged lid. My understanding is that lid was closed when our officers went up there, and they didn't think someone would climb up or go up onto that lid. In addition, the water in there, I believe, is about 10 feet deep. Approximately 10 feet deep, and I'm not sure whether her body was on the bottom or on the top, but certainly a body on the bottom of that pool would be difficult to see. So I don't have any information at all to believe that her body was stored somewhere else or kept someplace else and then placed in the storage tank. We believe it was in the storage tank at the time. Right, the dog did not pick up on her scent, but a lot of things can happen. It could have been a couple of days from the time that she went missing to the time the dog went out there, and a body inside of a storage tank, the dog wouldn't be able to detect that scent generally. Well, there's many hours, close to 100 hours of videotape that our detectives have reviewed in this case. They reviewed all the videotape from the entire hotel. Any piece of video that they can get, they've reviewed, and it's close to 100 hours of videotape for that time period. The reason why we released that particular piece of video, because it gave everybody that was watching an indication of what Ms. Lam looked like. The only other photos we have were older photos from her Facebook, and we could see in the video that she didn't look very much like her Facebook photo. In the time from the Facebook photo to the time that she was in the hotel, she looked considerably different. We didn't think we would have good luck putting that Facebook photo out there because we didn't think that was an accurate portrayal of how she looked. That's why they released the video. So hopes that someone in the neighborhood had seen her, someone would know about her whereabouts based on what she looked like that night.
February 19th. A maintenance worker was brought in to fix problems with the water pressure. Several guests in the hotel complained that the water pressure in the hotel was too low and that the water had a brackish black tinge to it and had a rotten smell and taste. He went up to the roof of the hotel. He opened up one of the water towers on the top of the hotel and found the decomposing body of Lam floating in one of the water tanks. According to the stage of decomposition she was in, she had been floating inside of it for nearly 3 weeks. And this is a working water tower. This thing has water flowing in and out of it all day. Approximately 11,000 gallons of water per day. So her body was rotting and contaminating about 11,000 gallons of water per day to the hotel.
What? Gross.
That probably almost worked in their favor because that much cold water going through there would keep the body more or less intact. It's not like they're sitting in room temperature water and letting everything bubble. Everything's nice and cool. Like
100%. 100%. Like, it's almost like, I don't know, like those that don't work in AC, like this is almost like a swamp cooler. Like it uses kind of like water and evaporation and like the coolness to like keep things like preserved and like cool and stuff like that. And, yeah, and like if it was 3 weeks in stagnant water, she'd be way more decomposed. They wouldn't have found nearly as much evidence. But still, even though the water's circulating, she's still rotting in that time. So she was significantly decomposed because the water was continually flowing. She was pretty much in one piece. The strange part, she was naked. Her clothes and her purse were in the water tank with her. And an autopsy was done immediately after she was found.
The initial autopsy is complete, but we are still a long way from knowing what happened to Elisa Lam. The body of the 21-year-old Vancouver woman was found this week in a Los Angeles water tank. Jeannie New joins us now. And Jean, a lot of people were hoping this autopsy would give us some answers.
And those answers, Mike, won't be coming for a while yet. We spoke with the LA coroner's office today, who told us the cause of death remains inconclusive, and finding out how Elisa Lam died will require more tests. The 21-year-old UBC student had been missing for almost 3 weeks before her body was discovered in the water tank on the roof of a low-end hotel in LA. Surveillance cameras in an elevator at that hotel captured Lam's last moments. She appeared to be acting quite erratically. And since the discovery of Lam's body, there had been concern over the safety of the hotel's water. But according to LA health officials, results of water testing released today showed no bacterial contamination.
And what about the timing going forward? When might we know, when might it become clear how she died and when she died?
Well, according to the coroner's office, toxicology and neuropathology tests still need to be conducted to give the complete picture, and those results should be back in 6 to 8 weeks.
But the report of it was delayed from releasing for 4 months. When it finally released, it showed that she had not been taking her medication. The autopsy showed she had 2 small scrapes on her knees. These scrapes could have come from something as simple as her kneeling in coarse gravel. It was a very, very minor injury. She had no defensive marks, no other cuts, no bruises, no ligature marks, no hemorrhaging from being strangled or suffocated, no internal injuries, no internal bleeding, not even signs of scalp trauma from her hair being pulled. She appeared to be simply dead in the water, like with no real signs of trauma to her. Her toxicology results showed that she had taken at least 1 antidepressant that day. And remember, all the medications I listed, these are daily medications. She had taken her second antidepressant recently, within the last 7 days, but not that day, and probably not in the past couple days. So it appears that she went off one of her meds. She had not taken her antipsychotic recently, so her antipsychotic, she has not taken that for 7 days. She had no alcohol or illegal drugs in her system, and she had no common lethal poisons in her system. Now, since they found no alcohol in her system, this is where, like, corporate police fuckery bullshit starts to come in. They didn't test her for date rape drugs. So you found this girl floating in this tank of water, kind of naked, without any signs of injuries. They don't test her for any date rape drugs, such as Rohypnol or ketamine, because there was no alcohol found in her system. They say that, like, well, alcohol is the easiest way to get it into her system, so if she didn't have any alcohol in her system, then she wasn't, like, drugged. They only also tested for common illegal drugs. This doesn't cover for, like, exotic illegal drugs that are not commonly tested for. And I couldn't find any list of what they were testing for and what they weren't. It just said that they tested for quote-unquote common illegal drugs. And even though she was fairly decomposed, they were able to get, like, blood out of the center of her organs, and that blood was still preserved enough to measure off of. So foul play theorists say that the police did not investigate enough or that police work was below par. And they do have a good point. They didn't test for rape drugs. They took a rape kit, but they didn't process it. And this is all because they didn't find alcohol in her system, and according to the wiki, all hotel employees and the bookshop keeper that saw her were interviewed and said that she was alone the whole time. So people saw her alone. She had no alcohol in her system, so they immediately kind of say, it's unlikely that she was raped, so we're throwing that explanation away. Or it's unlikely that she was murdered, so we're throwing that explanation away. They declared her death due to suicide, due to an accidental drowning. So they said she died by suicide due to accidental drowning. Doctors that have reviewed this decision, so people who do autopsies, have looked at the autopsy papers, and they say that this is a default label rather than a definitive one. The difference being, they said defaultly that she died by drowning. So they said she died by drowning because we don't have any other evidence for any other explanation. If it was a definitive explanation, they would have said, we have evidence that she died by drowning because we found direct evidence that she drowned. Her body was too decomposed. They couldn't tell whether she had water in the lungs at time of death or whether the water leaked in through the decomposition. So, I suspect she drowned, but we don't really know. And adding on top of that, when you look at the official report, the exact paper that was released, you can see several, eraser marks on the boxes. So there's a box that says death determined and a box that says death undetermined. And you can see that the boxes were checked and then erased, and a mind was changed at some point during. But when it was complete, the autopsy said death determined. Accidental drowning was the official legal opinion and the cause of her death. This began a wrongful death suit. The lawyer representing the Lam family sued the hotel for negligence in September of 2013. So it's September of the same year they started up the lawsuit. They had the legal precedent of grain silo deaths. So people have been prosecuted for negligent homicide and negligent manslaughter for leaving grain silos unlocked. They argued that a grain silo has one way in, one way out, and if you fall in, you will eventually exhaust yourself and die. In grain, you exhaust yourself by not being able to climb the top and eventually sinking in and suffocating under the grain. And in water, when you're trapped in a tank like that, you can only tread water for so long until you exhaust yourself and drown. So they're saying that this water tank is much like the grain silo, because when you get inside, you're trapped inside. There is nothing inside. There's no bars or handholds to get out. So once you're stuck inside, it's a death sentence. And since it was left unlocked, that it was negligent of the hotel to leave it unlocked. Adding to this, the lawyer said that there was many signs of people who accessed the roof. They found lots of condoms, empty bottles, graffiti all over the roof on a regular basis. People were accessing this roof on a regular basis, yet the water tanks remained unsecured. So the lawyer argued that the water tank was unlocked and accessible by a guest, and that led to the death of that guest. When this case was presented to a judge, the judge dismissed it. The judge said that the hotel was not responsible for her death because, quote, she was in an area of the hotel guests are not supposed to be. What are your guys' thoughts on that decision?
Well, fair, she wasn't supposed to be on the roof, but they probably should have still kept them secured, regardless.
Well, it seems to be kind of a continuing theme with the law, is that it is incredibly harsh on very small things, yet incredibly lenient on everything simultaneously.
Yeah, it's kind of like the pressures of the justice system are kind of pressed very strangely and unevenly.
Well, you can line up 5 cases saying one thing and 5 cases saying another, and each lawyer is going to try to make their case as convincing as possible as to which, what case law is best applied to the situation.
I guess the lawyer representing the Lam family was arguing that, okay, you have evidence that people go up here on a regular basis or under the influence of alcohol and other drugs. They found like drug paraphernalia, they found bottles. He was arguing that it was a matter of time until one of these drunk idiots like climbed on top of the hotel, got in the tank and died. And for time and labor to secure those lids would have been a couple $100, and that's an expense that the hotel should have bore for safety. The hotel's argument was that she accessed an area that guests weren't allowed in, that the placement of the lid on the water towels was high enough that it would deter it. And like it's obvious to a prudent person that climbing inside of a water tank is dangerous. So it's not the hotel's fault if somebody chooses to do that kind of thing. So those are kind of both sides of it.
Yeah, it sounds like negligence on the hotel's part to me. I'm not a lawyer. I don't do the law very well, but it just seems exactly like what negligent suits are about is, hey, you shouldn't even let people do that kind of shit.
Well, and I mean, we're kind of speaking from like a limited knowledge of law. I mean, I have, I don't know, like I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I do deal with law, kind of on a daily basis. And it's, I guess, I mean, at least in Canada law, I'm not familiar with the law of that particular jurisdiction, but if someone is on your property, with, at least in Canadian law, particularly with an intent to conduct business with you, you have a significantly higher duty of care to that individual. So like because they're an invitee, they are on your property because it is a business transaction, and that is why they are there. It's like if you go onto a McDonald's or whatever, they owe you a duty of care to make sure the parking lot is in good condition, that you can get from your car to the store, and when you're in the store, you're safe. It's a much higher duty versus, say, any duty I would owe to say some guy's skulking around my backyard because he's there to vandalize or steal something, and he steps on a rake and punctures his foot. It's, I owe a duty to ensure that there's no like obvious hazard, but at the same time, the duty isn't, I don't owe him like an excessive amount of duty in sense that, he shouldn't have been there. I wasn't expecting him to be there. And by virtue of being there when he shouldn't have been, and I wasn't expecting them, they incurred some sort of injury. But if he was there to say, I don't know, pick up something from Kijiji and steps on a rake, well, then it's a much higher defense that I would need to launch or to avoid, legal responsibility on that, because they were on the property for the purpose of conducting business. So you're expecting people to be on the property, even if, he decided to go to the back door when I'm like, come to the front door, and this happened. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not terribly rambling.
I think you're saying like if like say there was like some water display or fountain in like a guest accessible area. If she were to drown in one of those and not be found for weeks on end, then like the negligence lawsuit would have a lot more teeth, because then like you're saying that the hotel would have a bigger duty of care because she was in a guest accessible area and they expected her to be in that area.
Yeah, duty of care is a weird thing, especially too because hotels often have really specific laws because they deal with a thing like you say, someone's there as part of business because they're renting in one way or another a room or a space, but also like there's just all kinds of different weird laws that hotels have to follow that normal businesses and normal premises don't. So yeah, they could have all kinds of weird duty of care that's like, no, if you're
like if anybody in the audience out there has any like is a lawyer or like is married to a lawyer or is friends with a lawyer that might be in like the legal like realm to answer this question, like see if they'll email us.
Or owns a hotel. Maybe somebody who's listening owns a hotel and can kind of clarify that section,
or works in a hotel.
Or works in a hotel.
I'll just say that if you're going to explain like legalese to me and correct legalese, explain it to me like I'm 5. So let's retrace her steps of the night. Let's try and put together like what happened. So first, she's kicked out of her room due to certain odd behaviors. She doesn't call her parents, even though she's called them up daily till now. In the early evening, she drops by a nearby bookshop called the Last Bookstore to purchase a book. The bookshop owner, Katie, reports that Lam is alone. She's very friendly, very talkative, and she's acting like any other merchant at her place would act. Like just, a happy, kind of giddy tourist buying a book, visiting this cool bookshop. No signs of this quote-unquote certain odd behavior that had her kicked out before. She re-enters the hotel in the evening, and the front desk staff reports she is alone. We don't know when that unreleased video happened. It's never been released to the public when that timestamp was for those two men entering the hotel, so I don't know when that happened. But there's not evidence of her whereabouts until midnight, February 1st, when the surveillance video occurred, about 22 minutes after midnight. Now, there's some weird fucking things with this video. First off, very bad footage, low res, grainy. Okay, fine enough. Fine, it's an old ass hotel, low res, grainy video. The timestamp is very damaged and muddled, so it can't really be read. The hotel self admits that their equipment is old as fuck, it's degraded, a lot of their cameras either don't work or are fake, they admit to that. So, people have tried to interpret it, kind of looking at the blobs and guessing what numbers they can be. The lucky thing about numbers, especially when we're talking about numbers like in time, is they go up in a certain sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So, people tried to spot recognizable numbers in the furry blob at the bottom of the corner, and they tried to guess what time it was, and they estimated it to be about 22 minutes after midnight. Now, there's a misconception that the elevator button doesn't work properly, and is this a misconception or not? One, there's videos of somebody visiting this exact same elevator, going to the exact same floor, and pressing that middle bottom button, that exact one she's pressing the first minute of the video. That's a hold elevator button. When they pressed it in that elevator, the hold lasted for a minute or more. So that the elevator holding for a minute, and then her going back in and pressing all the buttons again halfway through, nothing elapses over a minute. So that hold button would have done it. But there's another misconception, because when that guy who entered it went over his own video and looked at the original surveillance video, he saw that the floor of that exact same elevator had been redone, reupholstered. Was the electronics changed out too? Was it the same electronics at the time? Did that hold button, was it in the same place, and did it still hold the door for over a minute? Again, nobody knows. Now, conspiracy time. So
yes.
The hotel is being sued for a wrongful death lawsuit. It would be in their best interest to release video of some person pursuing Lam. If somebody murdered Lam, instead of her dying in the hotel's water tanks, if she was put there instead of crawled inside and died there, then that would release the hotel of its negligence, because somebody else did that to her and deposited her body in the water tank. So, and I've already said there's a camera right above those bathrooms. When people toured that area just months after, there was a camera there. Now, did that camera work? Did they capture the other person that she may have been looking at or talking to? Or was she having a manic break and she was hallucinating? We don't know. It would seem to be in the hotel's best interest to release a video of somebody else pursuing her or appearing to pursue her. That would bolster their claim that they're not responsible for her death. Right? Am I right about that?
Definitely right.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So
it makes sense.
That leaves four options. The cameras were broken or fake, but there's a pursuer of Lam. The cameras are broken, and there is no pursuer. Option 3, there's working cameras, there is a pursuer, but the video wasn't released. And option 4, there's working cameras, but there isn't a pursuer, so the video was never released because she was having a manic episode and hallucinating her pursuer. Now, it gets even stranger. The original video was also time manipulated. Nobody knows why. We don't know whether it was the hotel that manipulated the video and handed it to the police, or if the police got the original video from the hotel, the police then manipulated it and then released it to the public. Is the hotel trying to play the police, or is the police trying to play the public? We don't know. The original footage of Lam was shorter. The version the LAPD released was slowed down. Her fast, jerky motions of the original became more slow and flowy. In my opinion, they became less kind of like attention-grabbing and less kind of concerning and more kind of like natural. She appeared more natural and flowy because the video was slowed down 20%. Why did they do this? What impression were they trying to make? Do you guys have any? Why would you slow down the video of her by 20%?
There's also a spot in the video where it seems like they might have taken some out, and it really seems like this hotel might have tampered with
and that's the thing.
Evidence.
If somebody pursued Lam, like, it would bolster their case the hotel wasn't responsible. Now, this is a theory that has fuck all evidence, but it makes sense. If it was an employee of the hotel that was pursuing her, that caught themselves on the camera, they would then have motive to delete themselves from the footage. That's the theory that makes a little sense just in the frame of the surveillance video. Now again, this mysterious hotel employee pursuer would have to drug her without it showing off on any tox reports, I guess with illegal drugs, or give her a date rape drug, which they never test for, and then they would have to, like, assault her and get her up into the water tank without bruising her or scratching her or anything else. Like I said, like, it's kind of fuzzy what exactly happened. So there's two routes to the roof. Another misconception is it's super hard to get to the roof. How did this woman get to the roof by herself? It turns out it's fairly easy. Again, on the videos released by people that toured the hotel months after, the fire escapes are really accessible. The window is a big, huge window. The windows are the only windows on the hallway of each floor, so they're big and attention-seeking. And they're only about 2 feet off the ground, so it's a 2-foot step up. And not only do the stairs have a railing on them, but the little box around them have a railing on them. So, looking at the videos, I'm a bit scared of heights. I think I would feel fairly comfortable climbing it. And it's at about maybe a 70-degree angle, so it's not even straight up and down. It's kind of like at a fairly low slant. So, and there's 3 fire escapes that lead all the way up to the roof. So she could have taken any one of those 3. There was also a door that led up to the roof. The door was locked, and there was a big bar on the door that says the alarm will sound if this door is opened. And the hotel claims if she opened the door, that the alarms would have sounded on the top 2 floors and down at reception. They would have been notified immediately. But again, when one of these people toured the hotel, they went into the employees only area. You know, they broke the hotel policy, but they were getting down to the bottom of something. And they pressed on that bar, and no alarm went off. This was months after it happened. Was the bar also deactive on the night that she went up there? So she had multiple easy routes of access to the top floor without being detected. She could have gone through that door. It could have been broken like it was months later and not set off an alarm, or she could have took the 3 routes straight to the roof.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also keep in mind that the hotel was... It's not like you're going to the Marriott. It's kind of like a hourly or rent rooms for a long-term kind of hotel. Like it's not the most high caliber of hotel.
Yeah, for a little bit, they rode on the marketing and they were able to become semi-successful because they were the haunted Cecil Hotel. But for the majority of its history, including when Lam stayed there, it was the budget rent-a-hotel. It was like if you were to look up on Google at the time, cheapest hotels in LA, it would come up in the search results. It wanted to be like the budget, cheap-ass option for travelers. So it was kind of like a very sketchy, kind of run-down hotel.
I was trying to find rates on it. I guess now it's called the Stay on Main, and I was trying to find hotel rates, but I
was looking too because I think it's currently closed.
For what it's worth, Yeah,
it's closed.
maybe it's a COVID thing, or maybe they're out of business. I have no idea, but
they're out of business. Okay, also fun fact, American Horror Story Hotel was partially based in there. I think a bunch of it was filmed in there before it closed.
Interesting. You can stay at a hotel nearby about 1 kilometer away for, a person can fly there and stay at a hotel about 1 kilometer away for about $1,100 for like a whole week. So,
damn.
Flight, hotel, about 1 kilometer away from the stay on Main or the Cecil Hotel, $1,100.
Yeah, it's a fairly cheap stay, especially for fairly waterfront property. You just have to put up with the fact that it's kind of like in Skid Row, kind of like in the higher crime areas of LA. Another one that people often pass around is the water tank. So there's lots of people saying this water tank was too tall for her to climb in, and even if she could get up there, that lid is too heavy to open. And even if she opened it, there's no way she could put it on by herself. This is the stuff that you see circulated again and again on social media, and even on a lot of popular podcasts. They kind of repeat the same information, that how could she get up there? How could she open the lid? If she opened the lid, then how should she get it back on if she fell in? Again, thanks to the case that the parents submitted, the wrongful death suit, a lot of private information became public about the exact conditions of the water tank on that night. So first off, the 4 water tanks were on a raised platform. The internet forums would have you believe this raised platform was 10 feet high. It's 3-4 feet high, and there's a little staircase on one side so you can climb up it easy. They said these tanks are 10 feet tall. There's no way she could get to the top of them, but they're very close together. And in between them is a lot of pipes, a lot of pumps. There's a lot of plausible places where she could have placed her feet. Besides that, even if she didn't climb the piping and the pumps, she could have used a ladder. A popular misconception is that there was no ladder found at the scene. Nobody ever said that. That was just something kind of populated on internet forums to kind of add to the mystery. The hotel and the people never said whether or not a ladder was found or not. And the lawyer themselves say that she died due to drowning, so they believe that she got in there by herself. They say that the lid was too heavy for her to open. I looked up the exact size. I looked at the exact lid. If you were to buy a replacement lid, it's 18 inches by 18 inches. It weighs about 20 pounds. It's there's no real bolts or attachments. It kind of just sits on the water tank lid, kind of like a Tupperware container lid. And according to people talking about maintaining these things, the lids are very easy to take off. In fact, there's journeymen on forums complaining about young apprentices saying those apprentices treat those water tank doors like they're goddamn bank vaults. They just need to pull a little harder and all that. So these things come off easier than said. And besides all that, if she was going through a genuine mania episode, that can add some adrenal strength to you. You can I guess lift more when you're kind of stressed through mania and you have adrenaline in your veins. And how did she close the lid afterwards? Again, nobody ever said that the lid was put back on. And in fact, when the court case came forward, the wrongful death case, it said that the maintenance worker that checked found the lid was off when they checked it. That lid was off of the tank. So she didn't have to put the lid back on. So she was able to get up to the roof. There are plausible ways for climbing up to the tank. The lid wasn't very heavy, so she could have pulled it off by herself. And she didn't need to put the lid back on. So putting the lid back on when she already fell in is not a problem because it didn't happen. So what do I make of all this? So number one, I do think she was having a genuine psychotic break from reality due to mania. Again, this is me as a layman looking at this. Take my words with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert in anything, but as somebody with bipolar that's been through mania episodes that are pretty severe, this looks oddly familiar. I think if I was in a dangerous situation when I was going through my mania, I may have inadvertently caused my own death as well. I was pretty out there. So in that mental state, did she climb to the roof of the hotel, climb into the tank by herself and accidentally drowned? Or did she mean to kill herself and die by suicide? Or did somebody take advantage of her mental state and kill her? She does seem to be avoiding somebody. My opinion, I think she defaulted on her meds, causing a psychotic break that included confusion, hallucinations, erratic behavior, and she made her way to the roof, climbed into the tank, accidentally drowned, and I think this is a tragic story of an accident that happened because of, like, improper mental health care and, like, lack of access to emergency, people that could have intervened, people that could have, stopped her, and kind of negligence of a hotel that could have prevented this from happening. Now that's my opinion. Now, I hold a very weak opinion, much like the coroners, or much like the doctors that did the autopsy. This is kind of a default opinion of mine. It's the one I land at because I don't have any better explanation. So here are some weird bits that disagree with me. In the elevator, she does appear to be paranoid, avoiding somebody, talking to somebody in the elevator videotape. Like, she appears to be playing or talking, or she appears to be interacting with somebody. The two men that give her the mysterious box. This box was never found. What was in the box? Was it like an exotic drug that wasn't tested for? Was it like super conspiracy? Like, was it a date rape drug and these two men were planning on coming back after she's taken it? I don't know. All her clothes were taken off. Did she take them off, climb up the tanks with her clothes, throw her clothes in, and then crawl in the tank? Or did she get in the tank with her clothes, feel heavy with them, swimming with them, and then take them off? Or did somebody kill her and drop her in? The clothes are kind of weird. The sloppy police work kind of disagrees with me. Many people at the hotel, even people in rooms very near her, were never interviewed. Hotel employees that were working that day were never interviewed. The police kind of phoned it in several areas. And the autopsy being released months later after things being changed, the hotel footage having a minute clipped from it, the time being changed, her rape kit never being tested, her blood not being tested for date rape drugs. Those are the things that lead me to not be 100% on my decision.
What propelled your interest in this case?
Well, like a lot of people, I was really taken in by this surveillance tape that was released of her on the 14th floor of the Cecil Hotel, Elisa Lam, just acting peculiar in her final moments of being seen. And so that footage just kind of drew me in. And like a lot of people, I just started going down this rabbit hole of exploring the case.
Right.
And then I discovered the mental illness angle of it and how she had kind of meticulously documented her own battle with bipolar disorder and depression. And that's an angle I'm very interested in on a personal level and a family level. So
you have someone in your family that has bipolar disorder?
My aunt had bipolar disorder. And so I became interested in how people who got obsessed with the case were kind of using theories of murder and ghosts at this hotel to try and, as basically a way to explain mental illness.
But what was it about that elevator video that you felt, what was it telling you? Her behavior was odd in what way?
Well, I mean, it depends who you ask. I mean, a lot of people view it as being symptomatic of bipolar. Psychomotor agitation is the word that is used. Other people think that she is possessed by people that have died at the hotel.
Or could it just be that she was looking to see who was coming down to get in the elevator?
The third explanation would be is someone following her, and I think that's with the time code being cut in certain places. The minute hand changes twice in 7 seconds. There's a lot of anomalies that have not been explained whatsoever by the LAPD.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it was a tragic accident.
Yeah, I think I side with you in your analysis of
I sort of
how
thought,
it played out.
Like, there's a lot of people that follow this case that seem like they look into her blog and they see her videos, and like, I really started to empathize with her, and I really tried to find like what happened to her, but I hit a wall. I don't have enough information. I just have a really good guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the those Panama those women who went out into the jungle in Panama,
Lisa
and then
and Chris Kremers.
You know,
They were
never heard from
vibrant,
again,
happy
so.
people, happy on vacation, and then they died.
You know, where
I
there's,
want to know what happened to them.
you know, and it's like there's some evidence that kind of suggests one thing, and then there's like evidence that may suggest another, but I don't know. I think speaking without the evidence to show that, you know, this was some sort of intentional malicious act by a third party, I'm inclined to say that, you know, she likely had some sort of episode and you know, perished through some sort of tragic accident like that, and was not wasn't being pursued by anybody. I mean, there was no real explanation as to why anybody would be pursuing her.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm inclined to say it's just a tragic accident.
And like the rational part of my head says, yeah, tragic accident, and most things point to that. And like nothing here is, you know, particularly spooky. The way she was acting in the lift was weird, but not, you know, abnormal for someone with some sort of mental condition or anything like that. But then there's that tiny bit in my head that's just like, but it's weird enough that it makes me wonder.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you hear stories about...
Go ahead.
Sorry, though, then you hear stories about how, like, people say that she was playing, like, the Elivator game and, like, all this, like, spooky stuff, and then your brain goes off in wild directions. But I do honestly think it was just, like, a really, really
And you know what, like,
sad accident.
Stuff out there that's, like, mysterious, like, spiritual fuckery, like, I genuinely hope that stuff exists, because that makes the universe a lot more, like, intriguing and deeper and interesting, but... So I hope it exists. I'm just waiting until I see, like, direct evidence to, like, promote and encourage it, kind of thing. But, like, I leave my mind open to the possibilities. I long to be amazed by the universe's mystical, mysterious powers, you know. If any patrons out there live in the area or have strong opinions about this case or want to add something, ovfeedback@gmail.com. Yeah. And even though we don't have the voicemail line open again, you can always send a voice memo to ovfeedback@gmail.com too, and we'll put that on the show. I have a good idea, but like there's a lot of gray area. So send in some feedback. We'll read it. Yeah. So for Occultae Veritatis, I've been Hugh Gallifrey,
sure.
and special guest in studio,
Richard Bigley.
He's the only one in studio because he lives with me. Yeah. Okay.
Right,
have a wonderful night.
That's
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Love you, bye!
Alrighty. Playing us out this episode is DJ Schnits. He didn't send much information with this track, and the track was just an obscure link with no name in the title. All he simply said about it is, this is some techno shit that I can't believe people paid for. I think it sounds pretty good. Listen here and see you in the after show.
Listen to the beat.
So for the after show today, we have some new cult members to welcome into the arms of Valhalla. Again, if you want to join the Patreon, join the Cult of Valhalla, all you need to do is go to patreon.com/ovpod. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to future episode polls, bonus content, and the ability to talk with the hosts and all the other cult members behind the scenes. And of course, you can start worshipping Valhalla officially as you're welcomed into the arms of the cult. So, the first person to mention isn't a new member, but somebody who has upped their pledge. Miriam has upped their pledge from $6.66 a month all the way to $25 a month. I know a pack of beer, a 6-pack of beer, which we would use for a recording, costs about $20 to $25, depending on the quality. So, Miriam, you're buying our drinks. So, drinks are on you for at least one episode a month, and we thank you for that. Jesus, like, it's the generosity of people like Miriam that can keep this show going, that allows us to pay for all our services and gives us a justification to invest, our time in this project. So, thank you, Miriam. You are a valuable cult member, and Valhalla blesses you. Next, welcomed into the Cult of Valhalla is Jillian Major at $1 per month. Thank you for joining the Cult of Valhalla. We appreciate each and every penny. And of course, Valhalla always appreciates another member of her flock. Next up, for $1 a month, Monica Dela Cruz. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for signing up, and thank you for growing the wealth, prosperity, and power of the Cult of Valhalla. You will be rewarded in this life and in life's infinite and beyond. That's all the new folks for this batch. Thank you once again for signing up to our Patreon, putting out an independent project like this where we don't really seek out sponsors that hard, and we don't really try and monetize this podcast too hard. It's important that we pretty much thrive off the generosity of people who appreciate the content we're putting out. So, if you've been listening for a while to this free content and you feel like you could part with, $5 a month, consider supporting our Patreon. Consider supporting this project that you enjoy week to week. And, if you keep supporting us, we'll keep this train running. Because I don't know if anybody's looked at our to-do list, but we have about 400 topics and growing day by day to cover. And we're not stopping until we cover it all. From Occultae Veritatis, I'm Ood Gallifrey. You know what's underrated? Nap dates. Even if it's a nap date with a furry friend or a stuffed animal. Pamper yourself. Love ya. Have a good night.